and Residential Life here to provide some background information. We know housing next to registration is one of the main concerns students have, and some LLCs require registration requirements. So we thought they would be a great team to have at today's training session. So without further ado, I will turn things over to our Housing and Res Life presenters. Feel free to share slides, introduce yourselves. Thanks so much for being here.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, sorry, Mannix.
Christy will start us off. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We're very happy to be here talking with you. I am going to share our slides with you. Share my screen, I guess. Hopefully that works for everybody.
Yep, that looks good.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy, for confirming that information. So yes, Mannix and I just want to give you a few updates, share a little bit more with you about our department. So here we go. My name is Christy Feist. I am an associate director here in Housing and Residential Life, and I oversee all of our student engagement opportunities. And so that includes our living learning communities, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But first, we just wanted to let you know that we're very happy to have students live with us. We hope they all find a sense of belonging when they live on campus. We know it's really important for them in that first year to help create that sense of belonging, and housing can really play a part in that. Studies do show, or research shows, that students who live with us do tend to have higher retention rates at the university. So that's really positive for us. 75% of new students will live on campus, so we're really happy with that. We'd certainly welcome a few more, and we are currently still accepting applications. But we have a wonderful team of folks who work in each building to help support students as they live with us. We have community advisors, we have full-time staff that live in the building and work with them. Our information desks are always open 24/7 to help assist students. And so as they transition from living at home to living with us, we try to provide as much support as we can to help them in that first year really consider develop their new skills and learn how to live away from home for the first time. I'll turn over to you, Mannix.
Sure. I'll talk a little bit about the housing timeline. Our housing application is available starting November 1st. So this past year, starting in November, students could apply for housing as soon as that. When they apply for housing, they pay a $75 housing application fee that's non-refundable. So if students apply for housing, we really consider kind of November, December, and January, kind of the earlier months of students applying for housing, where they have a better chance of getting one of their higher preference halls. And then after that, we always assign students in the order that we receive their housing applications, and I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. But as Christy mentioned, we are still accepting housing applications. So if you're meeting with students, whether they're incoming first year students or current students who may say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing for housing next year, please encourage them to apply. That we do have space available in both our residence halls and apartment spaces as well. And we will continue to accept those applications until we are full, which we'll see how this year goes. If we anticipate, we will stop accepting applications. The same for transfer students. We will accept applications for transfer students. We've actually assigned more transfer students now this year than we have previously at this time, because we've been assigning them the last couple of months and getting them assigned. So that's kind of our application timeline. Room assignments. Room assignments for us are done by July 31st. So all students who apply for housing are in a guaranteed housing. All the new students will get their assignments by July 31st. There's a little bit of work we do in between that last orientation and that time period to make sure everything's there. We want to make sure we get as many students who we know are coming as accurate as possible, and we take advantage of all the spaces. So we don't So we assign some of those students, or some people think it's late. It's not really late for us, because part of the thing what we try to weed out is make sure people who are canceling aren't coming, that we don't assign them, especially to good spaces, and then they take up those spaces, and it's hard for students to maneuver around later. But when they get their room assignment, they will get their roommate information. They'll get information about move-in. All that stuff is located in that room assignment information. So that's a critical time for us. One thing I will highlight a little bit is we send every student who is guaranteed housing, they will get an email from us to say they're guaranteed housing, and if they got in the living and learning community early in June. we usually do it right before or the day of the very first orientation. We try to get them. So then at some point they will get to know if they're in a learning community. If they didn't get in a learning community, their choice, they can switch and change that. But it also alerts to help those students understand that they're going to get a housing assignment from us. The first thing we do when we do housing assignments is looking at the living and learning communities. We have over 30 different living and learning communities. I think 28 of them maybe for first year students. So if they apply to be in one of those learning communities and we have space there, we will assign them to that learning community. After that, we assign every student in kind of the order we receive their housing application. If a student applies, or like we have a student applied in November and they select a roommate that applies in March, actually the person who applies early drives their assignment. So that's the person's assignment date that we use when we do the housing assignment. So it just goes in that order up until the time that we are full or we have that. We do give students some options to switch buildings after we do assignments. There's usually limited options on that, especially in our high preference halls. But there are options for students that say, hey, I thought I needed a single room or I needed something different, that there is a mechanism that they will get from us that they can switch rooms to do that. We'll go to the next slide now, Christy.
Sure.
Finding a roommate, about 50% of our students choose a roommate come in. About the other 50% are kind of assigned randomly by us. We have a roommate search options that is available in the housing system that we use. So some students will do that. Many students will find their roommates through social media or other means. Some still could find them at orientation. On our published materials, students will see that they have to make all their updates to their housing application by May 31st. However, if a student has not been assigned, like if they didn't select a living learning community, really up until they're assigned, they can switch that. We don't publicize that, but if they go to their housing application and they make those switches, they can. So oftentimes students will be at orientation, and if they haven't selected a learning community, they can go in and ask for a different roommate or do something there. We will do that. Once we make their assignment, if they want to make a switch to their housing application, they have to contact us because we have to do something on the back end to do that. So we say May 31st, but it's really based on when they get their housing assigned, when they're assigned housing. And once again, they don't know that they're assigned until they get the LLC publication will say they're assigned otherwise. But like I said, about 50% of our students, we're really about 50-50 who choose a roommate ahead of time, whether that's somebody they knew coming in or they choose through one of the other mechanisms, or if they just in essence say, hey, just randomly assign me housing and we do that. One of the things I always highlight about us that if you know or don't know, we are a system that has just shy of 1,000 single beds. So oftentimes students want single rooms. We have single rooms available. That's different for us compared to many of our other Big Ten colleges or other even local colleges around that we have a number of single rooms that can do that. So that's all within the mix as we go and we assign students. I talked to kind of about the room changes and assignment. It varies. I always make sure people know it's not the easiest thing to change because in theory, if somebody wants to be in Pioneer, which is our most popular building, there may not be space to move them in Pioneer. We clearly will put them on a wait list. It is much harder for students when they want to change to move with their roommate because it's hard to find whole open spaces after we do that assignment process. Because regardless, we will assign between usually 5,200 and 5,500 first year students. So there's not a lot of play in some of the popular spaces, but we will do our best to try to get students to where they want to be or somewhere general where they want to be. But we always want to make sure that students know that we house first year students in every one of our buildings, except usually Keeler's our only building that won't have first year students. And it could this year, but all of our other buildings will have first year students. So no matter where they're assigned, they will be with other students who are going through a similar experience that they are going to. Accommodation requests, we work very closely with our colleagues in the Disability Resource Center if they have an accommodation request. On accommodation request that's not a support animal, we probably get 75 to 100 requests a year. A lot of them are for single rooms or certain types of rooms that may need close to a bathroom or around a bathroom. So we work with the students to do that. We work with our colleagues in Disability Resource Center, and we try to get students assigned to the place where they will be successful and where they say they need to be assigned. We also work with our colleagues in the care program, and that's usually more during the year if there's some things happening that we need to work with students. So we really try to work through that. We also have emergency rooms in case we have facilities issues or if there's some roommate or some other kind of high level situations that we need to meet with student temporarily. While we work through that, we definitely have those rooms and room types available to try to work with our students.
So one of the things we know folks had asked about from this group was specifically living learning communities and any required courses that they might have to take. And so we do not have a lot of LLCs that actually require students to take a specific course. There are three that we have currently. That's MLK Beloved, Social Justice Action, and CLA is starting a new community this fall for PES students in their college. And so that will also have a required course. As Mannix mentioned, we like to do assignments, get the first set of LLC assignments done prior to that first orientation so that we can communicate with those students that they're in one of these communities. The campus partner for each of these communities as well gets notified which students have been assigned. We work really closely with them on which students are assigned. So they also have a list of students that they can then share and communicate out with advisors about students who need to be in certain courses. So hopefully that information is shared with students prior to when they're registering, and that information gets into the hands of folks like yourselves who need to know. If a student has a course conflict, there is something that they absolutely need to take and it conflicts with the course that the LLC is asking them to take, those partners have offered exceptions for those students and allowed them to be out of that requirement, but still participate and live within the community. We typically don't move students out of LLCs once they're assigned if they aren't able to participate in a certain part of the requirement, simply because we don't have a lot of space to move people around. So typically they'll still get to stay in the house and participate in any of the co-curricular experiences that the LLC partner is providing within the house, within the residential space that they live. So some important dates we thought for you all to know as you're working with students is that the housing contract, first of all, is a legally binding contract. It is, once a student signs on and they come and they check in and they take that room key, that space is now theirs. They're locked into that contract with us for the academic year, unless they have one of those extenuating circumstances that would allow them to get out of that contract. Things like withdrawing from the institution, taking a leave of absence, transferring, study abroad, military service, all of those reasons, whether that's during the academic semester, at semester break, we would provide them with a release from that contract and they wouldn't be responsible for the remainder of the time, whether that's if they're leaving again at the end of the semester or during the semester for one of those reasons. New students can cancel their housing contract with us without any additional information or requirements up to August 1st. They can, again, once they take the keys and they move in, that space is theirs. And they would have to go through the contract release process to get out of it after that point. We do have our apartments, those contracts in UDOF and Keeler. If a student lives in a university apartment, they can start moving in earlier, August 15th. Otherwise, the rest of our residential spaces will open at the end of August, early September, and throughout that first week with Welcome Week, we coordinate with that program to get them all moved in. So if you ever have any questions about contract release from a student, though, please do refer them to our office at some point. We can communicate with them what the options are for them to either end their contract at semester or during the semester. We do, I will just mention for this group, we do work with students if they have a medical reason, if there is something that has happened to them or to a family member that has a medical condition that is impacting their ability to attend or live here. We can work with them on that documentation and support them. Same with financial hardship. If something has happened that is making it impossible for them to continue here or to pay, we can work with them to figure out what's possible or what options exist. We thought it might be helpful also to share just a little bit about dining with you. Even though Mannix and I are housing folks, we thought we would share just to highlight some information for you. I think I'll turn over to you, Mannix. You're going to go through these first ones.
Sure. And for us, Dining's our sister organization. So every student who lives in a traditional residence hall has to be on one of the meal plans. And we will we may make some updates to this slide because dining has changed some of their things that will be out as that it's actually two meal plans that they will have next year. We have an unlimited meal plan with $150 in dining dollars and an unlimited plus with $300 in dining dollars. So the two silver and gold on here are now combined. So there's really two meal plans, but really it's all you care to eat. We have six residential dining halls that students they can eat at any of them. However, we do limit. Comstock is located behind. You have to go through the students' living area to get there. So all the students can't eat at Comstock. The UDOF students can, and then the Comstock students, but all the other dining halls, for the most part, students can get into and eat at. Middlebrook's the only other one that sometimes they have to get permission to get into, but we usually try to be flexible with that. They go to the hall information desk and inquire about that. We have a process to let students in there. But each of the meals have dining dollars associated with them, so they can use those at one of the 30 different retail locations that Chartwell's manages on campus. So really, it's just a great opportunity for students to do there. One of the other ways that I always say the community bathrooms and the place we have community bathrooms and the dining halls, the other places where people make those connections at. One of the things I did not allude to earlier that I'll highlight a little bit here, we do have two apartment buildings that we allow first year students to live in. One is UDOF on 5th and 6th floor. We have first year students. And then all of Wilkins is actually first year students. And where that comes into play a lot for us, we have a number of students who for various reasons would prefer to be in a situation where they have more semi-private bathrooms or situations where they may not be able to share bathrooms with others, or if they're looking for more single gender where they don't have to go to the bathroom or go down a hallway to the bathroom in front of the opposite gender or another gender. Those are great opportunities for students to do that, both at Wilkins and the UDOF space. So if you're working with students who need that. But those students in the apartments don't have to be on the meal plan because they have kitchens within their meal plan and in their units. However, last year, probably about 75% of our first year students in the apartment chose a meal plan because I think it was a nice way to adapt in that. Some of the students don't choose meal plans because they live in the apartments because maybe they have some different eating needs that they need that don't equate to that. So yeah, we'll go to the next slide if you like, Christy. Where the meal can be used, we mentioned that, our residential dining halls where they could do that and eat at. They can eat in any of those spots. They can use their dining dollars in any of the campus retail markets. They can use the Stargaze, the thing where they have it delivered to them. All that stuff is available to them that they can do. Our dining partners tries to make it as easy as possible for students to utilize their meal plans. They have to-go options where they can have a to-go container to take that. So it's really great. The dining folks also do a great job of updating their site with an orientation slide. So you can see exactly what they tell the parents and families as well as the students during orientation on that. They really try to do a good job in trying to make sure that they're connected there.
They also have a dietitian on staff. And so if you have students who are struggling because of allergies or because of other dietary issues, a lot of times the students might want to get out of their dining contract for those reasons. And so we do refer them to the university dietitian that works with dining to talk about what options are available for them at their dining centers, how to navigate the dining center, how to request different options or different accommodations within the dining center. And so we always do say, meet with Amy. She will meet you at the dining center that you use the most, walk you around, introduce you to the staff so they can get to know you if there's something specific that they can do. If dining feels like it's just an allergy or a dietary restriction that they cannot accommodate, then they would make that decision, but that would be highly rare that a student would be exempt from the dining plan requirement for that reason, just because they're usually able to accommodate each student's requests. So if you do have questions for dining that are specific for them, or you have a student who is struggling in the dining center, please reach out to them. They would rather know and meet a student and figure out how to help them than have a student struggle and not be able to find appropriate accommodations for them in the dining center. And the same is true for us. If you have a student at any point in the academic year who is struggling for whatever reason within their residence hall experience, they're not meeting people, the space doesn't work for them physically. They have a medical, they break their leg mid-semester and they're like, I'm on the fourth floor. I need to be with no stairs or something. Please make sure to have them reach out and contact us so we can help assist them the best we can. If you have any questions that you want to advocate for students with, you are welcome to email Mannix and I, and we can certainly help work through whatever situation that is as well. But we are here to help, so please do let us know. And that's all we had, Amy. Unless there were questions in the chat. I couldn't see the chat, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know how that is as a presenter. Well, thank you so much. I learned so much and appreciate all the context and information and ideas. We do not currently have any questions in the chat, so I think it's a good time for us to take our break. We will also have the chance for questions later on and in our 12 o'clock breakout room. So folks, at 11 o'clock, we will resume with course placement and access. So feel free to turn your cameras off, take a quick break, and we'll see you back.